Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you enjoyed the last videos. Today we're going to be making a very fresh tomato sauce, which I believe is a lot better than the shop bought stuff. Very simple and easy recipe with only a few ingredients.
We've got 4 simple ingredients here. We have 1 kilo of cherry tomatoes cut in half, 1 kilo of tomato passata, 3 cloves of garlic and 1 white onion. The tomatoes can be any way you like, 200, 300, 400, depending on how big you want to make it, as long as the ratio of tomato matches the same ratio of passata. So it can be 200 to 200 or 500 to 500, or we're doing a kilo to a kilo today. First thing we've got to do is prep everything ready for the sauce, so it makes it very easy to make. First job I did was cut all the tomatoes in half. Realistically, they don't all have to be in half, they can be any way you like. It's just to draw the moisture out of the tomato. They can be that way, they can be this way, they can be any shapes you like, any way you fancy really. There's no wrong way of doing a tomato, as long as they're cut open to draw all that liquid out of the centre. So the next stage we've got to do is prep the garlic. Once we've done the tomatoes, we need to prep all these cloves of garlic. We need 3 cloves. If they're this size and they're smaller, then you need 2 per size of my cloves. They're 3 normal size, but if you get 2 very little ones like this, then you're going to need double the amount. So you need 6 and I need 3, depending on your size of your clove of garlic. Now the first stage we've got to do is we've got to put the garlic nice and flat on the surface, so it's not rolling around, so it's not like on its edge, so it's nice and safe for us to use and peel. The easiest way to peel garlic is with the heel of your hand, which is this bit here. You're going to put your knife on top nice and flat, a nice big knife as well. You notice I'm not using a really small one because it just makes your life a little bit easier. And with the heel, you're just going to crack it, and you hear that noise? That is just the knife hitting the table once I had cracked the clove, and you just peel the garlic out of the skin like that. Then you only get 1 piece of skin and you've got a nice crushed piece of garlic. I repeat the process for these other 2. Nice and quick. And then you peel these ones down, and we'll run our knife through them as well. Making sure you get all those bits of skin off, because you can't eat those bits of skin. It's a little bit fiddly if your garlic's been in the fridge for a while and it becomes a bit cold. Ideally take it out and get it to room temperature just to help you peel it just a little bit. Once you've crushed it all like this and you've got some chunky pieces, you're just going to run your knife through the cloves of crushed cloves of garlic. The safest way to do that is to put your knife on a table and put your hand on top like this, and the rocking motion, that means you're not going to have your fingers in the way of the blade. So what we do is straight away like that, just on top, back and forth, and then when you think you've done it, clean your blade, push it all back into the centre and repeat the process again so it's nice and fine. You can go faster and slower. This way is very safe, so you can go really fast and you're not going to get your fingers in the way. You see how I can move my knife if I don't want to scrape the board and move all the garlic. I can move my knife and my body around to get the different angles. Once you've got a nice fine chop like this, then you're ready to go with the garlic. Just pick the garlic up, pop it on the edge of your knife like this, and just put it into a container to one side whilst we chop the onion. Now the idea of this sauce is everything is ready in advance, so there's nothing you need to worry about during the cooking process. It's all ready, it's all chopped, everything's nice and simple and easy then. The next stage is the onion. Now not everyone knows this, but if you cut the root off the onion, that's why you really start to cry. So the easiest way to do this is, if you see the root there, and the top of the onion is this bit here, you're just going to put your knife on the edge, hold it nice and firmly. The safest way to do this is to have the claw method, which is through at the front and to at the back, and I put my wrist on the table to secure the onion from rolling around, and all you do is put your knife through there and you're going straight through the root, so you got even on both sides of root, all the way through like that, so they're in half. Then what you do is you flip the onion over. This is the safest way to do that. Remove any rubbish as you go along. The safest way to do that is to flip it over so it's flat and doesn't move. You just cut the end off here, and then you trim the end of this piece here. You don't want to cut it all off, you just want to remove a little bit. And as you can see, the onion has many layers on the inside. The best thing to do is, you can see the first layer in, you put your finger behind that layer and you just remove the skin and the first layer, because normally the first layer contains a lot of skin as well. Any excess thin bits like that remove off as well, and that's your onion ready to go. So repeat the process for the other half, exactly the same. I'll just show you quickly, again, the same thing. So this is the top, so you just remove the top, discard any rubbish as you go along, so you've got a nice clean chopping board. And then you see the bottom here, you don't want to cut it off completely, you just want to trim it and remove that little bit there, almost like you're giving it a little haircut. Then you flip it over, you see the onion has loads of layers inside. The process is the first one inside, the first layer inside you remove, like that. Nice and simple, nice and easy. It can be a red onion as well if you like. If you're not a massive fan of the strength of the white onion, you can use red. And there you go, there's your onion prepped and ready to go. Next we're going to chop it. With the onion, the best way to chop it, we want it nice and fine and nice and small, almost the same size as the garlic. Now the safest way to do this is to follow the grain of the onion. As you can see, the lines run across from root to top. And all you want to do is with your finger and your fingers like this, like the claw position we call it, 3 at the front and 2 behind, nice and safe. This part of your finger doesn't get cut by the knife. Where your finger and your nail meet, you can cut like that all day long. You can practice like this and you'll never cut your finger on that part. So the next thing we do is we hold our fingers on top of the onion like this, and all you're going to do is nice and finely, you're going to go in all the way along the onion, just cutting right to the end of the root here, as you can see, right to the end, so you're not going to waste any of the onion. All the way along, until you get to the end here, and as you can see when I get to the end, all I have to do is hold it and just go in like that. So as you've got to this stage of the onion, the next stage is to put your hand on top. Now the safest way to do it is to put your hand nice and flat on top with a nice sharp knife. This also helps you from stop crying as well when you're cutting an onion. A nice sharp knife, you're going to run your knife into the onion. The more times you do this, as you go up the onion, the finer diced you're going to get. So as you can see, I'm going to do about 2 or 3 times, like that. Then with the rocking motion as we just did before, but this time we're not going to go like that, we're going to push forward with our knife, which will cut the onion nice and small. So you go the same again, but with your fingers you're just going to push it out a little bit. So as you can see, my pinky's here and my thumb is there. So all it's doing, that's pushing the onion in, and this one is securing my knife on the top. So we're going to hold this on top here. Let's put this bit back on top. Hold your fingers on top, and you're going to chop down, getting a nice fine chop. Now if you really want it smaller, you can run your knife back through this afterwards, but as I said, we're not going to be blending it, we're going to be passing it as a sauce. Just going to chop it like that, nice and fine. Now if your knife skills aren't very good, then the safest thing to use is use a grater, or a box grater, or a microplane. Really whatever you've got, and you can grate it. If you really want to and you're not so happy with a grater, you can use a RoboCoupe or a Thermomix or something like that to blend it. As you get to the end part here, as you can see, the root is there. That's sort of root stage. You can keep cutting that part of the onion, it's not going to go anywhere, you're not going to waste it. So with this bit here, same process, fingers at the front, knife runs through, same again here. And just keep chopping all the way down to the root. This bit on the edge and that bit there. And then you're left with this little bit of the root, which is still good to use for stocks. And if you're making a sauce, either a lamb sauce or a veal stock, you can just throw that in there and use it up. Even if you're making a white chicken stock, that's still quite good to use. So always keep these little bits in the fridge when you're going to make something like that. Then there's our onion chopped. Now we'll repeat the process for the next part. So now we've cut the onion and the garlic. You're going to get yourself a little bit of olive oil. I'm using British rapeseed oil. You just need 2 tablespoons of oil in the pan on a nice medium heat. You don't want to burn the onions and garlic. You want to slowly soften them. As you can hear that noise, that means your pan's ready to go. That's what you want. And then all you're going to do is just keep stirring them for a little bit, softening them up and releasing all their flavours. Just slowly, slowly. If the heat is too ferocious, just turn down a little bit like I'm going to do here. And just cook them out nice and slowly. If you need any more oil, you just put a splash more oil in. Just a splash. You don't want to make your sauce really greasy. I don't put any butter in my sauce either because, like I said about the oil, the butter will do the same thing, it'll just be really greasy. So you just want a little bit of oil just to help start the cooking process with the onions. So once you got to this stage, you can add all your chopped tomatoes you did earlier to your sauce. All of it goes in. Don't worry about your pot might not be big enough. You're going to cook it all down for maybe another half an hour. Obviously this batch here is going to make a lot of sauce, so you can freeze it. So get a good mix up, turn the heat up a little bit as well. Make sure you get them all covered in that oil, the olive oil or rapeseed or whatever oil you're using really. Make sure you get them all covered in the onions and garlic as well, because you don't want all those to stick to the bottom. And just start frying it quickly, and then suddenly the tomatoes will start breaking down. If you want any chilli in it, or you want it a little bit spicy, you can add a little bit of chilli at this stage as well. So obviously when the tomatoes are breaking down, the chilli's breaking down. If you want it a bit smoky, add some smoked paprika to it. You can add it at this stage as well. Just break it down a little bit whilst with the tomatoes. For me, I'm going to keep it nice and plain. Simple onions, garlic, tomatoes, and then olive oil or rapeseed oil, and then we'll add the passata afterwards. As you can hear by the noise, it's still sort of frying. You don't want it to fry so much. You'll soon hear the noise change when it starts to stew. You can see some of the tomatoes are starting to break down and go soft, like mushy, as they start to cook and they start breaking down in the pot. And just keep mixing right to the bottom. I'm using a spatula here because it's heat resistant as well. You can get right to the bottom and not scratch all your pans. You just cook it out for another 20 minutes. The recipe may seem like it's going to take a long time to cook out, but you're making a big batch. Now as you can hear, the noise now has totally changed. About 10 to 15 minutes into the cooking process, it's gone from the frying stage now to more of the stewing or the boiling stage. What this is doing now, all we're trying to do is break the tomatoes down and release the tomato water, almost some of the liquid from the tomatoes. So one, it doesn't make our sauce too wet, and secondly, it doesn't make it so it makes it slightly thicker because you get rid of all that excess tomato liquid from inside the tomatoes. As you can see, the tomato is starting to thicken up, which means most of the liquid out of the tomatoes has gone. You can add salt at this stage, or as you just put the tomatoes in the pan, you can add salt at that stage as well. Personally, I like to just add the passata and cook it out a little bit first, just to see how salty the passata might make it. As you can see now, it's starting to thicken up. That's when you can make that gap at the bottom of the pan, and it kind of holds. That means it's thickening. We're almost at the stage to add the passata. Tomato passata basically is uncooked, strained or passed tomatoes. You can buy it in all supermarkets. And it's really, you can buy the nice cheap stuff or you can buy the more expensive stuff. If you're going to add it to this, and try and buy a decent quality. As you can see now, the sauce is almost ready. So we're going to add the tomato passata, get that all in there, and then we're going to cook it out for another 20 minutes. So in theory the sauce should take about an hour, but you've made a big batch of it. So the tomato passata goes in, as you can see and hear, the noise of the pan stops whilst it slowly gets the heat back into the tomatoes. So all that goes in, like I said before in my other videos. Make sure you scrape everything out of the bowls you weigh the stuff into, otherwise you've altered the recipe. So now we're going to give that a good mix. As you can see at this stage, it's been cooking out for about 20 minutes now. It's got a bit thicker. If you want it even thicker, you can just keep reducing it down, but obviously be very careful because it will start to stick to the bottom of the pan, and if it does start to stick and catch and burn, it changes your sauce flavour altogether. So I'm going to leave mine at this stage for now, and I'll reduce it if I'm going to add it to any other dishes separately. So if I'm going to add a pasta to it or a spaghetti, I'm going to reduce it slightly and add my pasta to that so it's slightly thicker. But for now I'm going to leave it at this stage. So now I've taken it off the heat. What I'm going to do now, like I said before, is I'm not going to blend my sauce, but at this stage you can blend it. You can put it in a liquidizer or with a stick blender and just give it a good old blender so it's nice and smooth. What I'm going to do with my sauce now is I'm going to pass it or strain it. Obviously I've got a really big sieve here. If you've got one of those little sieves at home, you can use that, it doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is going to put it into the sieve, just carefully don't get splashed. We'll pour it all in. So my sieve is quite big, so it can take quite a lot. And like I said before, don't let anything go to waste in that pan, so we'll scrape out the inside in a minute. And with a ladle, I haven't got one of those, I'm going to use a big spoon instead. I'm just going to push everything out of the sieve, and like I said before, you'll be left with a pulp, and that will all come out once you've passed it. And as you can see already, in our sauce, a nice red, rich tomatoey sauce coming out of this sieve. Delicious in flavour, really intense. And if it's too thin for you, you can reduce it, like I said, a little bit more separately, or with all the tomatoes inside. But me, I'm just going to leave it like that for now because it's more universal this way around. So as you get to this stage, you want to make sure whatever's inside your sieve is dry. What I mean by dry is when you push it, nothing really comes out. Obviously you can see I need to push mine a little bit more, but it's almost there, you know, almost dry. If you're going to blend this, you can just blend it straight away. Never pass it through a sieve too much, as long as you blend it for a little bit of time to make it nice and smooth. As you can see from my sauce, it's quite a good colour, quite a good consistency. And as you can see now, not much is coming out of the sieve, which means it's quite dry. Now I'm just going to decant this one into this little saucepan here. So then at the end of it, you should be finished with this. A nice, silky, smooth, glossy tomato sauce, which can be frozen. It can be served with fish, meat, pasta. It's very versatile. And then you're left with that one, which is the pulp from the sauce. And you can freeze that and make a lamb sauce with it, or make your beef gravy, roast the vegetables off, add this to it, add a little bit of tomato puree, add your bones, add your stock, cook it for a couple of hours, and add your beef gravy.
Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Nice simple tomato sauce. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos coming out. I've got many more savoury things coming out on video as well. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you guys in the next one.